never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Fine.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. If you are not at SWA's Fightmare 17 last night, you missed a phenomenal, wonderful, absolutely terrific show. If you were there, you know what I'm talking about. If you were not, you missed a great night. But we're going to talk about that tomorrow because I want to give some people time to go back and watch Extreme Rules from the WWE, which was also last night. So we'll talk about both of those tomorrow. But today, here on the channel, I want to talk some college football. As always, if you have any thoughts on any of the games from yesterday, please feel free to let me know. Tennessee defeats LSU by the score of 40-13, and maybe I'm wrong, but I personally think that game was over at halftime. It wasn't over score-wise, but I think as good as Tennessee is, LSU knew they just had too many chances in the first half and just messed up. At halftime, Brian Kelly said, "We've been out-coached," but LSU actually fumbled the opening kickoff, and Tennessee got the ball on LSU's 27-yard line, so of course that's an easy touchdown. And then on the ensuing drive, LSU had a 3-and-out, and when they punted, they allowed a great punt return, and Tennessee ran it back to LSU's 26-yard line, I believe, which set up a field goal. So 4 minutes into the game, Tennessee had like 35 yards of offense, but they had 10 points. And then later on in the half, LSU had the ball on Tennessee's 14-yard line and had an easy 3 points and decided to go for it and didn't get it. And then right before the half ended, instead of LSU punting the ball, which would have pretty much ended the first half, they decided to go for it on 4th and long, and then Daniels got sacked, and it gave Tennessee the ball on the LSU 44-yard line, so it gave them plenty of time to get down for a field goal, and they did. So I think the halftime score, even though the game wasn't actually over with, I think it was because LSU knew, okay, we've made too many mistakes. Their offense is too good. We're not catching them. But Tennessee is a really good football team. We'll know for sure how good they are next week against Alabama, but that should be a good game. But Tennessee, even if they lose next week, they're definitely showing improvement. Mississippi State all over Arkansas by the score of 40-17. And I feel bad for Arkansas fans because they've been so bad for so long that they're getting so excited about Sam Pittman. But it seems like they're getting better. They're getting there, but they still just can't beat anybody that they shouldn't beat. They need one win against somebody that's better than them so they can show that they're making improvement, and so far they just can't do it. Michigan beats Indiana by the score of 31-10. I know the score is 21 points, but Indiana played some good defense, and it was actually 17-10 Michigan for a long time. But Indiana just could not move the ball on offense, and eventually their defense just wore down, and Michigan was able to put the game away. But Indiana hung with them for a lot longer than I thought they would. I know I said here on the channel on Friday that I thought Indiana would hang with them for the first half. They definitely did, and then some. And then Texas all over Oklahoma. Did not look like a rivalry game. Texas wins it 49-0, and Oklahoma just looks dreadful. Their defense has been bad all year long, but their offense is actually going backwards. And looking at their schedule now, I'm not sure they're going to win 6 games. They look absolutely pitiful. TCU defeats Kansas 38-31, and even though the score was high scoring, the game wasn't for a long time. Right before the half, it was 10-3, and then in the second half, both offenses just took over, and Kansas did all that with their starting quarterback out of the game. Their backup quarterback's a fifth-year senior that's never played a whole lot, but he played pretty good yesterday. And then Georgia all over Auburn by the score of 42-10. Speaking of dreadful, poor Auburn, they're just pitiful. I don't know how you can have Tank Bigsby on offense and your offense be that bad, but they're just pitiful. Oklahoma State defeats Texas Tech by the score of 41-31. USC actually trailed Washington State 14-10 for a while, but USC ends up winning it, going away 30-14. UCLA remains undefeated. They defeat Utah 42-32. And South Carolina ends up beating Kentucky 24-14. That's got to make Gamecock fans feel really good. We'll find out if they can get 2 in a row next week when they play Texas A&M. And then NC State in a classic defeats Florida State by the score of 19-17. I know Dave Doeren has said this year that the curse is over, and I know he says that because it seems like NC State just never can win those kind of games. Those are the kind of games that in the past, every time the game would come down to the wire, NC State would always find a way to lose it. But Dave Doeren said the curse is dead. Maybe he's right. They squeaked out a 19-17 win. And then Kansas State defeats Iowa State by the score of 10-9. In a mild upset, the Sun Devils of Arizona State defeat Washington, who was ranked going into the game last night, 45-38. And Alabama, for whatever reason, just didn't look that good. They defeat Texas A&M 24-20. Jimbo Fisher is going to end up keeping his job and being there for a long time because he plays Alabama so well. I don't know why, but 2 years ago, Bama beat them 52-24, but outside of that, this game is usually close. I thought last night's game would be a blowout because A&M has just looked so bad on offense, but their defense kept them in the game, and it came down to the very, very end. Notre Dame looks like they finally turned things around. They defeat the Cougars of BYU by the score of 28-20. North Carolina now 5-1 on the season. They defeat Miami by the score of 27-24. I know before the season started, when I was talking about Miami, I said everybody was talking about how good Tyler Van Dyke was going to be, and that even though I was so far a fan of Tyler Van Dyke, I did not think he'd have played long enough for us to all of a sudden think he's going to be some next big superstar. And so far this year, he's been average at best. Georgia Tech defeats Duke by the score of 23-17. to 20. So Georgia Tech is now back to 500 on the season. So now Georgia Tech fans are going to start wondering, you know what? Maybe we should have fired Jeff Collins a long time ago. Maybe they did actually have the talent. It's just Jeff Collins was that bad of a coach, and they still have a shot to win the ACC Coastal. I'm not saying they're going to. I'm not saying they will, but I'm saying they have a shot to, and I thought Duke was better than them, so they're clearly making progress. And then just an ugly football game. Illinois defeats Iowa by the score of 9-6. And Clemson defeats Boston College by the score of 31-3. The game was actually never close. Clemson's defense dominated. It was 3-3 for a long time, but since Boston College just could not move the football, when Clemson went up 10-3, you pretty much knew the game was over with, and the final score showed it. 31-3. Boston College had one big play on offense, and that was really about it. So Clemson's defense looked really good. I thought Boston College would score more than that. I thought Clemson would win the game, but with Clemson having so much trouble in their secondary, and then half the guys they have, even though they're not good, it's the best they have, are either injured or hurt or out injured. So I thought, well, they'll have a few pass plays that'll work, and they'll get a couple cheap touchdowns and keep it close. But they didn't. So Clemson is definitely getting better on both sides of the ball on a week-by-week basis, which is what you want. Typically, Dabo Swinney's offenses really don't reach their peak until about Game 7 or Game 8, which is where we almost are. So I think their offense is going to continue to get better. But I will say one thing I found interesting yesterday, it just goes to show how different people are, was going into the game against Tennessee yesterday. LSU head coach Brian Kelly said that LSU has not thrown an interception this year, and that's a bad thing. And you would think your coach would say that's a good thing, but Brian Kelly said that's bad because not throwing an interception is like a parent being overprotective of their kids. You've got to let your kids go out and explore and have fun. And a football is the same way. If we're not throwing interceptions, that means we're either taking the check down underneath every single time, or we're getting sacked, or the quarterback is keeping it. If we haven't thrown a pick in 5 games, that means we're not taking any chances downfield. And if you can't take chances downfield, you're not going to score the football. But the one thing about LSU that's puzzling not just LSU but everybody, including NFL scouts, is what's happened to Kayshon Boutte. He's supposed to be a first-round draft pick, and you would think if you're going to be a first-round draft pick, you'd go out there and play great and improve your draft stock even more. But he hasn't. The last 2 or 3 games, he pretty much has been non-existent. I don't know his final stats for yesterday because I didn't look, but I do know that at one time I saw he had 3 catches for 11 yards. That's less than 4 yards a catch. That's pitiful. And he seems like the longer he stays there, the worse he gets. And he is by far their best receiver, and that's why LSU is struggling so much moving the football, because your best receivers just disappeared. Again, any thoughts on any of the games, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. What did one plate say to the other plate? Tonight, dinner's on me. And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.